James Morrison checked his phone one more time at the red light. It was almost midnight and he was tired. He had just finished his shift at the restaurant where he worked as a cook. His white uniform smelled like grease and fried food. He was ready to go home, take a shower, and sleep. The light turned green and James drove forward. The streets were quiet. Most people were already home in bed. James turned on the radio to stay awake. A soft song played as he drove through the empty streets of Riverside, a neighborhood where big houses sat behind perfect lawns. James lived on the other side of town, in a smaller apartment with his girlfriend Sarah. She was probably already asleep, but she always left the porch light on for him. He smiled thinking about her. They had been together for 3 years and he was saving money to buy her a ring. Suddenly, red and blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. James felt his heart jump. He looked at his speedometer. He was driving at the right speed. He had stopped at every stop sign. He had not done anything wrong. James pulled his old Honda to the side of the road. He turned off the radio and put both hands on the steering wheel where they could be seen. His father had taught him this when he was 16 years old. "Always keep your hands where they can see them," his father had said. "Don't make any sudden moves. Be polite, say yes sir and no sir. Do whatever they tell you to do." James watched in his side mirror as a police officer got out of the patrol car. The officer was tall and had wide shoulders. He walked slowly toward James's car, one hand resting on his gun. James could feel sweat forming on his forehead even though it was a cool night. The officer tapped on the window with his flashlight. James rolled it down slowly. "Good evening, officer," James said, his voice steady but quiet. "Is there a problem?" The officer shined his flashlight directly into James's face. James squinted but kept his hands on the wheel. The bright light made it hard to see the officer's face, but James could see his name tag. It said Thompson. "License and registration," Officer Thompson said. His voice was cold and flat. "Yes, sir," James said. "My license is in my wallet in my back pocket. My registration is in the glove box. I'm going to reach for them now, okay?" Officer Thompson didn't answer. He just kept the flashlight on James's face. James moved very slowly. He took his right hand off the wheel and reached for his back pocket. He pulled out his wallet and handed his license through the window. Then he reached across to open the glove box. His hands were shaking a little now. "Why are your hands shaking?" Officer Thompson asked. "You nervous about something?" "No, sir," James said. "I just want to make sure I do everything right." "Step out of the car," Officer Thompson ordered. James felt confused. "Sir, can I ask why you pulled me over?" "I said step out of the car," Thompson repeated, his voice louder now. "Don't make me ask again." James unbuckled his seatbelt and opened the door. He stepped out onto the dark street. He was shorter than Officer Thompson and had to look up to meet his eyes. In the flashlight beam, James could now see the officer's face. It was hard and angry, like James had already done something terrible. "You were swerving back there," Thompson said. "Looked like you might be drunk or on drugs. Have you been drinking tonight?" "No, sir," James said. "I just got off work. I'm a cook at Miller's restaurant downtown. I haven't had anything to drink." "We'll see about that," Thompson said. He walked around James in a slow circle, looking him up and down. "You smell like marijuana." James felt panic rising in his chest. "No, sir, I don't smoke. I've never smoked marijuana in my life." "That's probably just the smell from the restaurant kitchen." "Don't lie to me," Thompson said, stepping closer. He was now just inches from James's face. "I'm going to search your vehicle. You got any drugs in there? Any weapons? Anything illegal?" "No, sir, nothing like that," James said. "But, sir, do you have a reason to search my car?" "I wasn't swerving. I haven't done anything wrong." Thompson's face changed. His jaw tightened and his eyes got smaller. "Are you telling me how to do my job?" "No, sir, I just—" "Turn around and put your hands on the car," Thompson ordered. James did as he was told. He put his hands flat on the roof of his Honda. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might jump out of his chest. Officer Thompson patted him down roughly, checking his pockets. Then Thompson walked back to James's car and started searching inside. James stood there in the cold night air, his hands on his car, watching as the officer pulled things out of his vehicle. Thompson threw his work bag on the ground. Papers scattered across the street. He opened James's lunchbox and dumped it out. He pulled up the floor mats and looked under the seats. "Sir, please," James said. "I don't understand what's happening. What did I do wrong?" "Shut up," Thompson said from inside the car. Keep your mouth shut and your hands on the vehicle. After 10 minutes, Thompson had searched every inch of the car. He had found nothing because there was nothing to find. James kept his car clean. He didn't even have a parking ticket. Thompson walked back to where James stood. He looked angry that he hadn't found anything. "This search is illegal," James said quietly, finding courage from somewhere deep inside. "You had no right to search my car without my permission or without probable cause. I know my rights." That was the moment everything changed. Thompson's face turned red. He grabbed James's arm and twisted it behind his back. Pain shot through James's shoulder. "You're resisting arrest," Thompson shouted, even though James was not resisting anything. "What?" "No, I'm not," James said, confused and scared. "I'm just standing here." Thompson pushed James hard against the car. James's face hit the metal roof. He tasted blood in his mouth. He had bitten his lip. "Stop resisting." Thompson yelled again, louder this time, as if someone else was watching. But the street was empty. There was no one else around. Thompson pulled out his handcuffs and roughly cuffed James's hands behind his back. The metal was tight and cold against his wrists. James felt tears forming in his eyes, but he blinked them away. He would not cry. He would not give this officer the satisfaction. "You tried to grab my weapon," Thompson said, dragging James toward the patrol car. "That's assault on a police officer. You're going to jail." "That's not true," James said, his voice breaking. "I never touched you. I never reached for anything." But Thompson wasn't listening. He pushed James into the back of the patrol car and slammed the door. Through the window, James could see Thompson walking back to his Honda. The officer reached up to his shoulder where his body camera should have been recording everything. He pressed something and a small red light turned off. James sat in the back of the patrol car, his hands cuffed behind him, his lip bleeding and his whole body shaking. He thought about Sarah waiting for him at home. He thought about his father's advice. He had done everything right. He had been polite. He had kept his hands visible. He had said yes, sir, and no, sir, and none of it had mattered. The patrol car started moving, taking James away from his car, away from his normal life, and into a nightmare he never imagined would happen to him. Darius Williams sat at his desk in the small office of the Riverside Independent News. It was early morning, and he was the only person there. He liked these quiet hours before everyone else arrived. He could think clearly and do his best work. Darius was 32 years old and had been a journalist for almost 10 years. He had started at a big newspaper in the city, but he had left that job 2 years ago. The big newspaper didn't want to print his stories about police problems in black neighborhoods. They said his stories were too controversial. They said he was being too aggressive. So Darius had joined the Independent News, a small online publication that let him write about the things that mattered. He took a sip of his coffee and opened his laptop. Like every morning, he checked the police blotter. This was a list of arrests from the night before. Most journalists ignored the blotter. It was boring, just names and charges. But Darius had learned that sometimes the most important stories were hidden in boring places. He scrolled through the list. Drunk driving, shoplifting, domestic dispute. Then something caught his eye. James Morrison, age 26. Arrested at 11:47 p.m. Charges: resisting arrest and assault on a police officer. Darius stopped scrolling. He read it again. Something felt wrong. The charges said resisting arrest and assault, but there was no initial crime listed. Why was James Morrison being arrested in the first place? Usually people were arrested for something specific like robbery or drug possession, and then they might also be charged with resisting arrest if they fought back. But this said nothing about why the police had stopped James Morrison to begin with. Darius wrote down the name and the case number. He had learned to trust his instincts. After 10 years of reporting, he could feel when something didn't add up. He called the public defender's office. A tired voice answered after 6 rings. "Public defender's office, this is Linda." "Hi, Linda, this is Darius Williams from the Riverside Independent News. I'm calling about a case from last night." "James Morrison, can you tell me who's assigned to his case?" "Hold on," Linda said. Darius heard papers shuffling. That would be attorney Rebecca Chen, but she's in court right now. "Can I have her call you back?" "Yes, please. It's important." Darius gave Linda his number and hung up. He opened a new document on his computer and started typing notes. He didn't know why yet, but he felt like this case was going to be important. An hour later, his phone rang. It was Rebecca Chen. Mr. Williams, this is Rebecca Chen. You called about James Morrison? Yes, Darius said. I saw his arrest on the blotter this morning. The charges seem unusual. Can you tell me anything about the case? Rebecca sighed. It was a long, tired sigh. I just met with Mr. Morrison an hour ago. He's still in jail. Can't make bail. It's set at $50,000. $50,000? For what? That's the question, isn't it? Rebecca said. According to the police report, Officer Bradley Thompson pulled him over for swerving. Then James allegedly became aggressive, refused to comply, and tried to grab the officer's weapon. And what does James say? He says none of that is true. He says he was driving normally. He did everything the officer asked. He never touched the officer or his weapon. He says the officer searched his car illegally, and when James questioned it, the officer arrested him. Darius was writing everything down as fast as he could. Do you believe him? Rebecca was quiet for a moment. I've been doing this job for 5 years, Mr. Williams. I've represented hundreds of clients. You learn to tell when someone is lying. James Morrison is not lying. He's a young man with no criminal record. He works at a restaurant. He has a girlfriend. He was just trying to drive home from work. But here's the problem. It's his word against a police officer's word. And juries almost always believe the police officer. What about body camera footage? Darius asked. Officer Thompson's body camera malfunctioned. At least that's what his report says. Darius felt his anger rising. He had heard this story before. Too many times. That's convenient. Yes, it is, Rebecca said. But there's nothing I can do about it. Without evidence, James will probably have to take a plea deal. Maybe the prosecutor will reduce the charges if he pleads guilty. Otherwise, this goes to trial and he'll likely lose. Can I talk to him? Darius asked. Can I visit James in jail? Why do you want to do that? Because I think there might be more to this story, Darius said. And I think people need to hear it. Rebecca gave him the information he needed to visit the jail. Darius thanked her and hung up. He sat back in his chair and stared at his computer screen. He had a feeling about this case. A strong feeling. 2 hours later, Darius was sitting in a small room at the county jail. The walls were gray concrete. The table was metal and cold. The room smelled like cleaning chemicals and sadness. The door opened and a guard brought in James Morrison. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit. His hands were cuffed in front of him. There was a bruise on his cheek and his lip was swollen. James sat down across from Darius. He looked exhausted and scared. Mr. Morrison, I'm Darius Williams. I'm a journalist with the Riverside Independent News. Your attorney, Ms. Chen, said it was okay for me to visit you. I want to hear your story. James looked at him carefully. Why? Nobody else cares what happened to me. I care, Darius said simply. I've been reporting on police misconduct for years. I read about your arrest this morning and something didn't seem right. Will you tell me what happened? James was quiet for a long moment. Then he started talking. He told Darius everything. About driving home from work. About the red and blue lights. About keeping his hands on the wheel. About Officer Thompson searching his car. About questioning whether the search was legal. About how everything changed after that. I never touched him, James said, his voice breaking. I swear to God I never reached for his gun. I never resisted. I did everything my father taught me to do. I was polite. I was careful. And it didn't matter. Darius listened to every word. He watched James's face as he talked. He had interviewed many people over the years. He knew when someone was telling the truth. James was telling the truth. The officer said his body camera malfunctioned. Darius said. James laughed, but it was a bitter laugh with no humor in it. Of course it did. I saw him turn it off. After he put me in the car, I saw him reach up and press something on his camera. A little red light turned off. Darius wrote that down. You saw him turn off the camera? Yes, I saw it clearly through the window. Mr. Morrison, James, do you know the name of the officer who arrested you? Thompson. Officer Bradley Thompson. Darius wrote the name in his notebook. He underlined it twice. I'm going to look into this. I'm going to find out everything I can about Officer Thompson, but I need you to know that this might not be easy. Even if I write a story, it might not change anything. The system doesn't always work the way it should. I know, James said quietly, but at least someone will know the truth. At least someone will care. Darius reached across the table. He couldn't shake James's hand because of the handcuffs, so he just put his hand on the cold metal table between them. I promise you I will find the truth, and I will make people care. After the visit, Darius went back to his office. He opened his computer and started searching for information about Officer Bradley Thompson. He found Thompson's personnel file, which was public record. He found news articles that mentioned Thompson. He found court cases where Thompson had testified. As the sun went down and the office got dark around him, Darius kept reading and taking notes. Other reporters went home. The cleaning crew came and left. Darius stayed at his desk, following a trail of information that was starting to tell a disturbing story. Officer Bradley Thompson had been with the Riverside Police Department for 8 years. In that time, he had made more than 200 arrests. That was a lot, even for an active officer. Darius started looking at those arrests more carefully. He noticed a pattern. Most of Thompson's arrests were of black men. Most happened late at night. Many included charges of resisting arrest or assault on an officer. And in many cases, there was no body camera footage because the camera had malfunctioned. Darius felt his heart beating faster. This was bigger than just James Morrison's case. This was much bigger. He made a list of names. Men who had been arrested by Officer Thompson in the past 3 years. There were 43 names on the list. Darius decided he would try to contact every single one of them. It was past midnight when Darius finally left the office. He was tired, but his mind was racing. He knew he had found something important. He knew this story could make a difference. As he walked to his car, he thought about James Morrison sitting in a jail cell, probably unable to sleep, probably scared and angry and wondering if anyone would ever believe him. "I believe you," Darius said quietly to the empty parking lot, "and I'm going to prove you're telling the truth." Darius spent the next week working harder than he had ever worked in his life. He barely slept. He lived on coffee and takeout food. His girlfriend complained that she never saw him anymore, but Darius couldn't stop. Every time he wanted to give up and go home, he thought about James Morrison sitting in jail for something he didn't do. He started with the list of 43 men who had been arrested by Officer Thompson. Getting their contact information was difficult. Some had moved away. Some had unlisted phone numbers. Some wanted nothing to do with a journalist asking questions about their arrests. But Darius was patient and persistent. He explained who he was and why he was calling. He told them about James Morrison. He said he was trying to find a pattern of misconduct. Slowly, people started to talk to him. The first person who agreed to meet was a man named Kevin Jackson. Kevin was 29 years old and worked at a grocery store. Thompson had arrested him 2 years ago. They met at a coffee shop on a Wednesday afternoon. Kevin looked nervous. He kept looking around as if someone might be watching them. "Thank you for meeting me," Darius said. He had his notebook ready, but he didn't take it out right away. He didn't want to scare Kevin off. "I don't know if this is a good idea," Kevin said. "I don't want any trouble." "You won't get in trouble for talking to me," Darius assured him. "I just want to know what happened when Officer Thompson arrested you." Kevin took a deep breath. "It was late at night. I was driving home from my girlfriend's house. He pulled me over and said I didn't use my turn signal. But I know I used my turn signal. I always use my turn signal." "What happened next?" Darius asked gently. "He asked for my license and registration. I gave them to him. Then he asked me to step out of the car. He said he smelled marijuana. I told him I don't smoke, but he didn't listen. He searched my car without asking permission." Darius felt a chill. This sounded exactly like James's story. "Did you question the search?" he asked. "Yeah, I asked him if he was allowed to do that without my permission. That's when he got angry. He grabbed me and pushed me against the car. Then he arrested me for resisting arrest. He said I tried to pull away from him, but I didn't. I just stood there. I was too scared to move." "Was there body camera footage?" Kevin shook his head. "His camera wasn't working. At least that's what they said in court. My lawyer told me to take a plea deal. He said if I went to trial, I would lose because it was my word against a police officer's word. So I pleaded guilty to a lesser charge. I did 6 months of probation and had to pay a fine, but I didn't do anything wrong." Darius wrote everything down. "Kevin, did you ever see Officer Thompson turn off his body camera?" Kevin thought for a moment. "You know, I'm not sure, but I Remember seeing him touch something on his shoulder before he put me in the police car. I didn't think much of it at the time. After meeting with Kevin, Darius felt even more certain he was onto something. He continued calling the other names on his list. The second person he spoke with was Terrence Williams. No relation to Darius, but they joked about having the same last name. Terrence was 34 and worked as a teacher. Thompson had arrested him 18 months ago. Same story, Terrence said when they met. Late night, traffic stop. He said I was speeding, but I wasn't. He searched my car. When I asked why, he got aggressive. Arrested me for resisting arrest and assault on an officer. No body camera footage because of a malfunction. Did you take a plea deal? Darius asked. No, I fought it. Went to trial. I lost. The jury believed Thompson. I lost my teaching job because of the conviction. It took me 8 months to find another job. My life fell apart because of that arrest. Darius interviewed 8 more men over the next few days. Every story was similar. All were black men. All were pulled over late at night. All were searched without proper cause. All were arrested when they questioned the officer. All had no body camera footage. Some took plea deals. Some went to trial and lost. Some went to jail. All had their lives damaged by Officer Thompson. But the most important interview happened on Friday afternoon. Darius met with a man named David Chen. David was 27 and worked at a tech company. Thompson had arrested him 3 years ago. They met in a park. David said he felt safer talking outside than in a public place like a coffee shop. They sat on a bench under a large tree. I read about the James Morrison case, David said. When I saw that Thompson was the arresting officer, I knew exactly what had happened. Thompson is dirty. Everyone in the black community knows it, but nobody can prove it. Tell me what happened to you, Darius said. David told his story. It was the same pattern: late night stop, illegal search, arrest when he questioned it, no body camera footage. But there's something else, David said, looking around to make sure no one was listening. Something I never told anyone because I was too scared. Darius leaned forward. What is it? About 6 months before Thompson arrested me, I saw him arrest someone else. I was driving home late one night, and I saw a traffic stop happening. I pulled over because I was curious. I watched from my car. Thompson pulled a young black guy over. He searched the car. Then I saw Thompson go back to his police car, take something out and put it in the guy's car. He planted evidence. I saw it with my own eyes. Darius felt his heart racing. You saw him plant evidence? Yes. I'm sure of it. He went back to his police car, reached into his trunk, took out a small bag and put it under the driver's seat of the other car. Then he arrested the guy for drug possession. Why didn't you come forward? Darius asked. David looked at him with sad eyes. Because I was scared. I'm a black man. Who would believe me against a white police officer? And I was right to be scared. Because 6 months later, Thompson arrested me too. It felt like punishment for witnessing what I saw. Like he knew I had seen him and he wanted to send me a message to keep my mouth shut. Would you be willing to tell this story publicly? Darius asked. Would you go on record? David was quiet for a long time. If I do this, my life could get worse. The police could make things harder for me. I could lose my job. People might not believe me. I know, Darius said. But if you don't speak up, Thompson will keep doing this to other people. James Morrison is sitting in jail right now for something he didn't do. How many more people will Thompson hurt if nobody stops him? David looked up at the sky. A bird flew past, free and unbothered. Let me think about it, he said finally. Give me your number. I'll call you in a few days. Darius gave David his card. As he walked back to his car, he felt frustrated. He understood why David was scared. He understood why so many people took plea deals instead of fighting. The system was designed to protect people like Thompson and punish people who spoke out against them. Back at his office, Darius organized all his notes. He created a spreadsheet with every arrest Thompson had made. He noted the dates, the charges, the outcomes. The pattern was clear and undeniable. Over 8 years, Officer Bradley Thompson had arrested 43 black men in similar circumstances. In 38 of those cases, there was no body camera footage due to technical malfunctions. In 29 cases, the men took plea deals. In 11 cases, they went to trial and lost. In 3 cases, the charges were dismissed when prosecutors realized there was no evidence. Not a single case had resulted in a finding that Thompson had done anything wrong. Darius created a chart showing how Thompson's body camera had malfunctioned 47 times in 8 years, while other officers in the same department averaged less than 2 malfunctions per year. The numbers told a story that was impossible to ignore. He wrote a draft of an article explaining the pattern. He included interviews with Kevin, Terrence, and 6 other men. He left out David's story about witnessing Thompson plant evidence because David hadn't agreed to go on record yet. But Darius knew the article wasn't enough. Without hard evidence, it would just be another story about police misconduct that people would read and forget. He needed proof. He needed something that would force people to take action. He thought about James Morrison's case. James said he saw Thompson turn off his body camera. But there was no way to prove that. The camera footage didn't exist, and Thompson would just say it malfunctioned like always. Darius leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He was missing something. There had to be evidence somewhere. There had to be a way to prove Thompson was lying. Then his phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. Hello? Mr. Williams? This is David Chen. I've been thinking about what you said. About how Thompson will keep hurting people if nobody stops him. Yes? Darius sat up straight. I'll go on record. I'll tell my story. But there's something else. My mother lives on Oakwood Street. That's where Thompson arrested James Morrison. My mother has security cameras on her house. They record everything that happens on the street. Darius felt electricity run through his body. Does she still have the footage from that night? I don't know, but I can ask her. She usually keeps the recordings for a month before they get automatically deleted. James was arrested 2 weeks ago, right? Yes, 2 weeks ago. Then the footage might still be there. I'll call my mother right now. Darius waited, barely breathing. This could be everything. This could be the proof he needed. 10 minutes later, David called back. She has it, David said. The camera recorded the whole thing. She's been keeping the footage because she saw what happened and she was worried. She wanted to come forward, but she was scared, just like me. But when I told her about your investigation, she said she would give you the footage. When can I see it? Darius asked. Can you come over tonight? My mother lives at 742 Oakwood Street. I'll be there in an hour. Darius grabbed his laptop and his keys. His hands were shaking as he drove across town. This was it. This was the evidence that would change everything. The courtroom was cold. James Morrison sat at the defense table next to Rebecca Chen, his public defender. He wore a suit that Rebecca had brought for him. It was too big and made him look smaller than he was. His hands were folded on the table in front of him, and he tried to sit still, but his leg kept shaking. Behind him, in the second row, sat Sarah, his girlfriend. She had been crying every day since his arrest 3 weeks ago. Her eyes were red and tired. Next to her sat James's mother, a woman who had raised him alone after his father died. She held a tissue in her hand and stared at the back of her son's head. Darius Williams sat in the back of the courtroom. He had his notebook open and his pen ready. He had not yet gotten the security camera footage. Mrs. Chen, David's mother, had shown him the video 2 nights ago, but there were technical problems getting it off her old security system. A tech expert was working on it right now. Darius hoped they would have it before the trial ended, but he wasn't sure. For now, all he could do was watch and document everything that happened. The jury sat in their box to the left. 12 people who would decide James's future. Darius studied their faces. 8 white people, 2 Hispanic people, 1 Asian person, 1 black person. Most were middle-aged or older. Most looked like they had never been arrested or even pulled over by police. Most looked like they had never been scared of an officer. The judge entered the room. Everyone stood. Judge Martha Harrison was an older white woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been a judge for 20 years and had a reputation for being fair but tough. Please be seated, Judge Harrison said. Her voice was firm and clear. The prosecutor stood up. His name was Michael Stevens. He was in his 40s, tall and confident. He wore an expensive suit and carried himself like he had never lost a case. Your Honor, the state calls Officer Bradley Thompson to the stand. Darius watched as Officer Thompson walked to the witness stand. Thompson was wearing his police uniform. It was clean and pressed. His shoes were shined. His hair was cut short and neat. He looked like every police officer in every recruitment poster. He looked trustworthy and honest. Thompson placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Then he sat down in the witness chair. He looked comfortable there like he had done this many times before, which he had. Darius knew from his research that Thompson had testified in court 47 times in 8 years. Officer Thompson, the prosecutor began, please tell the court about the events of October 15th. Thompson nodded. He spoke clearly and calmly. At approximately 11:45 p.m., I was on patrol in the Riverside neighborhood. I observed a vehicle, a Honda Civic, traveling eastbound on Oakwood Street. The vehicle was swerving between lanes, crossing the center line multiple times. Based on my training and experience, this is consistent with impaired driving. Darius wrote down every word. He noticed that Thompson never said I think or maybe. He stated everything as absolute fact, even though it wasn't true. What did you do next? Stevens asked. I initiated a traffic stop. The vehicle pulled over. I approached the driver's side window and made contact with the driver, who I now know to be Mr. James Morrison. And what was your impression of Mr. Morrison at that time? He appeared nervous. His hands were shaking. When I asked for his license and registration, he seemed reluctant to provide them. As he opened his glove box, I also detected a strong odor of marijuana coming from inside the vehicle. In the gallery, Sarah shook her head. James had never smoked marijuana in his life. But the jury was listening to Thompson, and some of them were nodding. What happened next? Stevens continued. I asked Mr. Morrison to step out of the vehicle so I could conduct a field sobriety test. He became agitated and confrontational. He raised his voice and accused me of racial profiling. I remained calm and professional, but Mr. Morrison continued to become more aggressive. James closed his eyes. None of this was true, none of it. But he couldn't speak. He could only sit there and listen to Thompson lie about him. Did you search the vehicle? Stevens asked. Yes. Based on the odor of marijuana and Mr. Morrison's suspicious behavior, I had probable cause to search the vehicle for illegal substances. And what did you find? I found no drugs, but Mr. Morrison's aggressive behavior continued to escalate. He stated that the search was illegal and that he was going to file a complaint against me. His tone was threatening. At that point, I informed him that I needed to place him in handcuffs for officer safety while I completed the investigation. How did he respond? Thompson paused. He looked at the jury, making eye contact with each of them. He became violent. He pulled away from me and swung his arm toward my duty weapon. He attempted to grab my gun from my holster. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Harrison hit her gavel. Order. Darius felt sick. This was a complete lie. But Thompson said it with such confidence that it sounded real. What did you do to protect yourself? Stevens asked. I used necessary force to subdue Mr. Morrison. I pushed him against the vehicle and secured him in handcuffs. He continued to resist, but I was able to maintain control of the situation and place him under arrest. Officer Thompson, in your 8 years of service, how many times have you been accused of excessive force or misconduct? Never, sir. I have a clean record. I have received commendations for my service. I take my oath to protect and serve very seriously. Thank you, Officer Thompson. Stevens turned to the judge. No further questions, Your Honor. Rebecca Chen stood up. She looked tired. Darius knew she was overworked and underpaid. She had probably 40 other cases just like this one, but she was trying her best. Officer Thompson, Rebecca began, you stated that Mr. Morrison was swerving. How many times did you see the vehicle swerve? Multiple times. How many is multiple? 3 times? 5 times? 10 times? Thompson shifted in his seat. I don't recall the exact number. You don't recall? But you wrote in your report that it was consistent with impaired driving. Surely you would remember how many times you saw him swerve if it was so concerning. It was multiple times, Thompson repeated, his voice harder now. Officer Thompson, you said you smelled marijuana. Did you find any marijuana in the vehicle? No. Did you find any drug paraphernalia? No. Did you find anything illegal in the vehicle? No. So you smelled marijuana, but there was no marijuana. Is that correct? The smell was there, Thompson insisted. Just because I didn't find drugs doesn't mean they weren't there recently. Rebecca nodded. Let's talk about your body camera. Why is there no footage of this arrest? The camera malfunctioned. It's a technical issue that happens sometimes with electronic equipment. How often does your body camera malfunction, Officer Thompson? I'm not sure. Rebecca walked to her table and picked up a piece of paper. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Defense Exhibit A into evidence. This is a record of body camera malfunctions for all officers in the Riverside Police Department over the past 3 years. She handed the paper to Thompson. Officer Thompson, can you see that your body camera has malfunctioned 47 times in the past 3 years, while the average for other officers is 1.8 times? Thompson looked at the paper but said nothing. 47 malfunctions seems unusual, doesn't it? Rebecca pressed. Equipment fails sometimes, Thompson said. 47 times? Objection, Stevens said, standing up. Asked and answered. Sustained, Judge Harrison said. Rebecca continued. Officer Thompson, Mr. Morrison states that he never reached for your weapon. He states that you grabbed his arm and pushed him against the vehicle without provocation. Why should this jury believe your version of events over his? Thompson looked directly at the jury. Because I'm a police officer, I took an oath to tell the truth. I have dedicated my life to serving this community. I have no reason to lie. Mr. Morrison, on the other hand, is facing serious charges. He has every reason to lie to avoid prison. It was a good answer. Darius could see it working on the jury. They were nodding again. They believed Thompson because he wore a uniform and spoke with authority. Rebecca asked a few more questions, but Darius could tell she was losing. Without evidence, without body camera footage, without witnesses, there was no way to prove Thompson was lying. It was just James's word against a police officer's word, and juries almost always believe the police officer. No further questions, Rebecca said finally, sitting down. The prosecutor called 2 more witnesses. Officer Maria Garcia testified that Thompson was a good officer with a strong record. Sergeant David Wilson testified that Thompson had never been disciplined for any misconduct. They both spoke about his dedication and professionalism. Rebecca tried to cross-examine them, but there was little she could do. They were character witnesses, and they were there to make Thompson look good. After the witnesses finished, Judge Harrison adjourned for the day. The trial would continue tomorrow with closing arguments. Darius walked out of the courtroom feeling frustrated and angry. He had watched Thompson lie under oath for over an hour. He had watched the jury believe those lies, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. He pulled out his phone and called the tech expert who was working on the security camera footage. Please tell me you have it, Darius said. Almost, the tech expert said. The file is corrupted, but I'm running recovery software. I should have it by tomorrow morning. The trial might be over by then, Darius said. I'm doing the best I can. Darius hung up. He sat in his car in the courthouse parking lot and put his head in his hands. He had the evidence. He knew the truth. But if he couldn't get that video file recovered in time, it wouldn't matter. James would be convicted. Thompson would get away with it again. And the pattern would continue. Inside the courthouse, James was being taken back to jail. He had sat through Thompson's testimony without saying a word. He had listened to every lie. He had seen the jury believing those lies. We'll try again tomorrow, Rebecca had told him. I'll do my best in closing arguments. But James knew it was over. He could see it in Rebecca's eyes. She didn't believe they could win. Nobody believed they could win. In the gallery, Sarah had cried when Thompson talked about James trying to grab his gun. She knew it wasn't true. She knew James would never do something like that. But knowing the truth didn't matter if nobody else believed it. That night, Darius sat in his office and worked on his article. He wrote about the trial. He wrote about Thompson's lies. He wrote about the pattern of arrests. He wrote about the body camera malfunctions. He included interviews with the other men Thompson had arrested. But as he wrote, he felt defeated. An article might make people angry for a day or two. It might get some attention online. But would it actually change anything? Would it save James Morrison? Would it stop Officer Thompson? He didn't know. All he knew was that he had to try. He had promised James he would find the truth and make people care. Even if it felt hopeless, he had to keep that promise. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from the tech expert. Got it. File recovered. Sending it to you now. Darius sat up straight. His heart started beating fast. He opened his laptop and refreshed his email. There it was. A large video file labeled Security Camera Oct15.mp4. Darius downloaded the file and opened it. The video was grainy and shot from a distance, but it showed Oakwood Street clearly. And there, at timestamp 11:43 p.m., was James Morrison's Honda Civic pulling over to the side of the road. Darius watched the entire video. By the end, he was shaking. This was it. This was the proof. This would change everything. He grabbed his phone and called Rebecca Chen. "Rebecca, I have video evidence. I have footage of the entire arrest." "What? How? I'll explain tomorrow. But we need to show this to the judge before closing arguments. This video proves Thompson lied about everything." Rebecca Chen arrived at her office at 6 in the morning. She had barely slept. Darius Williams had called her at 9 p.m. the night before and told her he had video evidence. She had told him to meet her first thing in the morning so they could review it together before court. Darius was already waiting outside her building when she arrived. He looked tired but excited. He held his laptop under his arm like it was made of gold. "Show me," Rebecca said, unlocking her office door. They sat down at her desk. Darius opened his laptop and pulled up the video file. "This is from a security camera at 742 Oakwood Street. That's the house on the corner where James was pulled over. The homeowner kept the footage after she witnessed the arrest." He pressed play. The video was in black and white and shot from above, looking down at the street. The quality wasn't great, but it was clear enough to see what was happening. Rebecca leaned forward, watching carefully. At timestamp 11:43, James's Honda pulled onto the screen. The car was driving normally, staying in its lane. "Watch," Darius said. "He's not swerving." "His driving is perfectly fine," Rebecca nodded. She could see that James was driving straight and careful. A minute later, a police car appeared behind James's Honda. The red and blue lights turned on. James's car pulled over immediately. Both vehicles stopped under a streetlight. Officer Thompson got out of the police car. Even from a distance, Rebecca could see Thompson's hand on his weapon as he approached. James's window rolled down. The video had no sound, but Rebecca could see the conversation. Thompson's flashlight was pointed at James's face. James's hands were clearly visible on the steering wheel. After a minute, James reached slowly for his wallet and then for the glove box. Every movement was careful and deliberate. Thompson walked back to his police car for a few minutes, probably running James's license. Then he returned and ordered James out of the car. James complied immediately. He stepped out with his hands visible. "Here," Darius said, pointing at the screen. "Watch what happens now." Thompson walked around James in a circle, talking to him. Then Thompson went to James's car and started searching it. He pulled out bags and papers. He threw things on the ground. He searched for almost 10 minutes. Rebecca watched James standing on the sidewalk the entire time. He didn't move aggressively. He didn't try to run. He just stood there with his hands at his sides. Then James said something. Rebecca couldn't hear what it was, but she could see his mouth moving. He appeared to be asking a question. Thompson's body language changed immediately. He walked quickly back to James. He grabbed James's arm roughly and twisted it behind his back. James didn't fight back or resist. He just let Thompson cuff him. But then came the most important part of the video. As Thompson pushed James against the car, James's body moved toward Thompson's side. His hand was nowhere near Thompson's weapon. Thompson was the one who grabbed James's wrist and deliberately moved it toward his own holster. Then Thompson pushed James hard against the car and forced him to the ground. Rebecca gasped. He staged it. Thompson made it look like James was reaching for his gun. "Exactly," Darius said. "And watch this." After Thompson put James in the police car, the video showed Thompson standing next to his vehicle. He reached up to his shoulder where his body camera was mounted. His hand moved and then his hand dropped. "He turned off the camera," Rebecca said, "or he made sure it was off." James was telling the truth. "About everything," Darius confirmed. Thompson lied about the swerving. James was driving normally. Thompson lied about James being aggressive. James was completely calm and compliant. Thompson lied about James reaching for his weapon. Thompson staged that himself, and Thompson deliberately ensured there would be no body camera footage. Rebecca sat back in her chair. She felt angry and relieved at the same time. Angry that this had happened to James. Relieved that they could finally prove it. "We need to show this to the judge immediately," Rebecca said. Before closing arguments, This is new evidence that proves perjury. Judge Harrison will have to see it. There's more, Darius said. He pulled out a folder full of documents. I've been investigating Thompson for 3 weeks. I've interviewed 11 other men who were arrested by Thompson in similar circumstances. Same pattern. Late-night stops, illegal searches, arrests when they question him. No body camera footage. I have all their statements here. I also have statistics showing Thompson's body camera has malfunctioned 47 times in 3 years, while other officers average less than 2 malfunctions. Rebecca looked through the documents. This was more than just evidence for James's case. This was evidence of a systematic pattern of misconduct. One more thing, Darius said. I interviewed a man named David Chen. 3 years ago, David witnessed Thompson plant evidence in another suspect's car during a traffic stop. David was too scared to come forward at the time, but he's willing to testify now. His statement is in there too. Rebecca felt overwhelmed but energized. This is incredible work. How did you find all of this? I'm a journalist, Darius said simply. This is what I do. When I saw James's arrest report, I knew something was wrong. I just had to prove it. We need to file an emergency motion with the court, Rebecca said, already reaching for her phone. I'm going to call the prosecutor's office and let them know we have new evidence. Then I'm going to call Judge Harrison's clerk and request an immediate hearing before court starts. For the next 2 hours, Rebecca worked frantically. She filed paperwork. She made phone calls. She prepared arguments. Darius sent her the video file and all his research documents. At 8:30 a.m., Rebecca, Darius, and Prosecutor Michael Stevens met in Judge Harrison's chambers. The judge sat behind her large desk looking stern and curious. Ms. Chen, you filed an emergency motion this morning claiming you have new evidence. What exactly do you have? Rebecca opened her laptop. Your Honor, last night I received video footage of James Morrison's arrest. The footage comes from a home security camera and shows the entire interaction between Mr. Morrison and Officer Thompson. I believe this footage proves that Officer Thompson committed perjury when he testified yesterday. Stevens stood up. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The defense can't introduce new evidence in the middle of trial without proper notice. The defense only received this evidence last night, Rebecca countered. We're moving as quickly as possible. Your Honor, I believe you need to see this video before this trial continues. Judge Harrison thought for a moment. Show me the video. Rebecca turned her laptop around. Judge Harrison watched the entire recording without saying a word. Her face remained neutral, but Darius, watching from his chair, could see her jaw tighten as the video progressed. When it ended, Judge Harrison sat back and looked at Stevens. Mr. Stevens, have you seen this video? No, Your Honor. I just learned of its existence 30 minutes ago. Watch it now. Stevens walked around the desk and watched the video. As it played, his confident expression faded. He looked uncomfortable, then concerned, then angry. When it finished, Stevens said nothing for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Your Honor, I need time to review this evidence and consult with the police department. I imagine you do, Judge Harrison said coldly. Ms. Chen, you said you have additional evidence? Yes, Your Honor. Rebecca handed the judge a folder. This is investigative research conducted by journalist Darius Williams. It documents a pattern of similar arrests made by Officer Thompson over 8 years. 43 arrests of black men, most late at night, most with illegal searches, most with no body camera footage due to technical malfunctions. Mr. Williams has statements from 11 men who describe experiences nearly identical to Mr. Morrison's. Judge Harrison looked through the documents. She read slowly and carefully. The room was silent except for the sound of papers turning. After 15 minutes, Judge Harrison looked up. Her face was grave. This is deeply disturbing. Mr. Stevens, does the district attorney's office know about this pattern? I was not aware of this pattern, Your Honor, Stevens said. His voice had lost its confidence. If I had known, I would not have brought this case to trial. Perhaps you should have investigated before charging Mr. Morrison, Judge Harrison said sharply. Ms. Chen, what are you requesting? I'm requesting that the court dismiss all charges against James Morrison immediately. I'm also requesting that the court refer this matter to the district attorney's office and internal affairs for investigation of Officer Thompson. Stevens spoke up. Your Honor, the state does not oppose dismissal of charges against Mr. Morrison. After viewing this evidence, we believe Officer Thompson's testimony was not credible. We will be conducting a full investigation. I should think so, Judge Harrison said. She looked angry, which was unusual for her. I will order an immediate dismissal of all charges against James Morrison. I'm also ordering the District Attorney's Office to review every case in which Officer Thompson testified, and every arrest he made. If this pattern is as widespread as these documents suggest, there may be innocent people in prison right now. Mr. Stevens, you will coordinate with Internal Affairs and report back to this court in 30 days with a full accounting. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Harrison turned to Rebecca. Ms. Chen, please bring Mr. Morrison to the courtroom. I want to inform him personally that he is free to go. 20 minutes later, James Morrison was brought into the courtroom. He looked confused and scared. Sarah and his mother sat in the gallery, both looking worried. They didn't know what was happening. Judge Harrison explained everything. She told James about the video. She told him the charges were dismissed. She told him he was free. James stood there, not moving, as if he couldn't process the words. I'm free? I can go home? Yes, Mr. Morrison, Judge Harrison said, and her stern face softened slightly. You can go home. I want to apologize on behalf of this court. You should never have been arrested. You should never have spent a single night in jail. A grave injustice was done to you. James started crying. He couldn't hold it back. Sarah ran to him and threw her arms around him. His mother joined them, all three of them crying and holding each other. Rebecca Chen stood to the side, wiping her own eyes. In 10 years of being a public defender, she had seen very few victories like this one. Darius Williams watched from the back of the courtroom. He felt relief and satisfaction, but also anger. James was free, which was good. But how many other people had Thompson hurt? How many had taken plea deals because they had no evidence? How many were still in prison right now because of Thompson's lies? After the courtroom cleared, Darius approached James. Mr. Morrison, do you remember me? I'm Darius Williams. We talked at the jail. James nodded, wiping his eyes. I remember. You promised you would find the truth. I kept my promise, Darius said. But I need your permission for something. I want to publish my investigation. I want to write about what happened to you and what happened to all the other men Thompson arrested. People need to know about this. Are you okay with me using your name and telling your story? James didn't hesitate. Yes. Tell my story. Tell everyone what happened. If my story can help someone else, then something good can come from this nightmare. Darius shook James's hand. Thank you. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what Officer Thompson did. I'm going to make sure he's held accountable. That afternoon, Darius went back to his office. He sat down at his computer and began writing. He wrote the most important article of his career. He included everything: the video, the interviews, the statistics, the pattern of misconduct, James's story, the perjury in court. He titled the article, A Pattern of Injustice: How One Police Officer Targeted Black Men for Years While the System Looked Away. He worked through the afternoon and into the evening. He wanted every word to be perfect. This article would create change. He could feel it. At midnight, Darius published the article online. Then he went home and finally slept, knowing that tomorrow, everything would be different. Darius Williams woke up at 7 in the morning to the sound of his phone ringing. It had been ringing for hours, but he had been so tired that he slept through it. He had published his article at midnight and gone straight to bed. He picked up his phone and saw 63 missed calls. His email inbox had over 300 new messages. His social media notifications were going crazy. What in the world? Darius muttered. He opened his laptop and went to the Riverside Independent News website. His article had exploded. It had been shared over 50,000 times on social media. People were commenting, reacting, and spreading it everywhere. The view counter showed 200,000 reads and was climbing every second. Darius read through some of the comments. This is horrifying. How many people did this officer hurt? I live in Riverside. I always knew Thompson was dirty. Everyone in the black community knew. This is why people don't trust police. How many other officers are doing this? That poor man spent 3 weeks in jail for nothing. This is wrong on every level. His phone rang again. It was a number from Los Angeles, Darius answered. Hello? Is this Darius Williams? This is Rachel Martinez from Channel 7 News in Los Angeles. We'd like to interview you about your investigation into Officer Thompson. Would you be available today? Before Darius could answer, his phone beeped with another call, then another. News stations from across the country were calling. National newspapers wanted to talk to him. Television shows wanted him to appear. Darius called his editor at the Riverside Independent News. Have you seen what's happening? Are you kidding? I've been up all night. Every major news outlet in the country is calling us. CNN wants to do a segment. The New York Times wants to follow up. Darius, this is huge. This is national news. By 9 a.m., protests had started outside the Riverside Police Department. People held signs that said, "Justice for James Morrison," and "Fire Thompson," and "End Police Racism." The crowd grew larger throughout the morning. News helicopters flew overhead. Camera crews from local and national stations set up on the sidewalk. Reporters interviewed protesters. The story was everywhere. Inside the police department, Chief William Palmer was having the worst day of his career. He sat in his office surrounded by his senior staff, all of them looking stressed and angry. How did we not know about this? Palmer demanded. How did a pattern this obvious go unnoticed for 8 years? Sir, we did receive some complaints about Officer Thompson over the years, said Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez. But they were never investigated thoroughly. The complaints came from people who had been arrested, and we assumed they were just trying to avoid consequences for their crimes. You assumed, Palmer said bitterly. You assumed that black men complaining about racism were lying. You assumed that a white officer with a clean record was telling the truth. And now we have a journalist who proved that our assumptions were wrong. His phone rang. It was the mayor. Chief Palmer, my office has been flooded with calls. The city council is demanding answers. I need you to hold a press conference today and explain what the department is going to do about this situation. Yes, sir, Palmer said. We're already working on it. Work faster, the mayor said and hung up. At the district attorney's office, Michael Stevens was reviewing case files. He had a team of prosecutors going through every arrest Thompson had made in the past 8 years. They were looking at every case, every charge, every conviction. What they found was disturbing. Thompson had arrested 43 black men in similar circumstances. Of those 43, 29 had taken plea deals. 11 had gone to trial and been convicted based largely on Thompson's testimony. 3 had their charges dismissed due to lack of evidence. That meant 40 men had criminal records because of Thompson's arrests. Some had done jail time. Some had lost jobs. Some had lost custody of their children. All of them had their lives damaged. Stevens called a meeting with his staff. We need to review every single one of these cases. If there's any doubt about the conviction, we're going to recommend overturning it. If someone is currently in prison because of Thompson's testimony, we're going to work to get them released immediately. That's going to be a lot of work, one of his assistants said. I don't care how much work it is, Stevens said firmly. We put innocent people in prison. We believed a racist cop who was lying under oath. We have a responsibility to fix this no matter how long it takes. At his apartment, James Morrison sat on his couch with Sarah next to him. They were watching the news together. Every channel was covering the story. Reporters were talking about him, showing his picture, discussing his case. This is so weird, James said. Yesterday I was nobody. Today my face is on national television. You're not nobody, Sarah said, squeezing his hand. You're the man who survived something terrible and lived to tell about it. You're the man who stood up for what was right even when the whole system was against you. James's phone rang. It was Rebecca Chen. James, have you been watching the news? Yeah, it's crazy. It's going to get crazier. I've been contacted by 3 civil rights organizations who want to help you file a lawsuit against Officer Thompson and the Riverside Police Department. You could receive a significant settlement for what you went through. James thought about it. A lawsuit, money, justice. Part of him wanted revenge. Part of him just wanted to move on with his life. Let me think about it, James said. Right now, I just want to be home with Sarah and try to process everything that happened. I understand, Rebecca said.
Take your time.
But James, you should know that your case is going to change things. Because of you, the police department is being forced to reform. Because of you, other people are going to be freed from prison. Your suffering meant something. After he hung up, James sat quietly for a moment. He thought about the night he was arrested. The fear he felt. The helplessness. The certainty that nobody would believe him, but people had believed him. Darius Williams had believed him. Rebecca Chen had believed him. And now the whole country believed him. At the Riverside Independent News office, Darius was preparing for a live television interview. A CNN crew had come to film him for their evening show. The reporter, David Chen, no relation to David Chen who had helped Darius with the security footage, sat across from him with a microphone. Mr. Williams, you broke this story wide open. What made you investigate Officer Thompson in the first place? I saw James Morrison's arrest report and something didn't feel right, Darius explained. The charges were resisting arrest and assault on an officer, but there was no mention of an initial crime. That's unusual, so I started digging. You interviewed 11 other men who were arrested by Thompson. What did they tell you? They all told similar stories. Late-night traffic stops for minor or fabricated reasons. Illegal searches. Arrests when they questioned the legality of those searches. And in almost every case there was no body camera footage because Thompson's camera had mysteriously malfunctioned. The statistics you found are shocking. Thompson's body camera malfunctioned 47 times in 3 years while other officers averaged less than 2 malfunctions. How is that possible? It's not possible, Darius said bluntly. Not unless Thompson was deliberately turning off his camera. The pattern is too clear to be coincidence. Thompson knew that without video evidence it would be his word against the word of the men he arrested. And he knew that juries would believe a police officer over a black man. What do you say to people who argue that these men were criminals and got what they deserved? Darius looked directly at the camera. I say that being black is not a crime. Driving while black is not a crime. Questioning an illegal search is not a crime. James Morrison was driving home from work when Thompson pulled him over for no reason and arrested him for nothing. James lost 3 weeks of his life sitting in jail. He lost his job. He nearly lost everything, and he was completely innocent. How many other James Morrisons are out there? How many other people were targeted by Thompson and didn't have security camera footage to prove their innocence? The interview continued for 20 minutes. When it was over, the CNN reporter thanked Darius and told him the segment would air that evening on national television. By afternoon, the pressure on the Riverside Police Department was enormous. Chief Palmer held a press conference outside the department building. Dozens of cameras and reporters crowded around him. Good afternoon, Palmer began, reading from a prepared statement. I want to address the recent allegations against Officer Bradley Thompson. After reviewing the evidence presented by journalist Darius Williams, including video footage and statements from multiple individuals, the department has placed Officer Thompson on administrative leave, pending a full internal investigation. We are also cooperating with the district attorney's office to review every arrest and conviction involving Officer Thompson. If wrongdoing is found, appropriate action will be taken. A reporter shouted a question. Chief Palmer, how did this pattern of abuse go unnoticed for 8 years? Palmer looked uncomfortable. We are investigating our internal procedures to determine how these complaints were handled. We acknowledge that our department failed to properly investigate allegations against Officer Thompson, and for that, we apologize. What are you doing to prevent this from happening again? We are implementing mandatory body camera usage for all officers with no exceptions. Cameras will be equipped with technology that prevents officers from turning them off during interactions with the public. We are also requiring all officers to complete additional training on bias, civil rights, and proper procedures. And we are establishing an independent civilian review board to investigate complaints against officers. The press conference continued, but Darius wasn't watching. He was back at his office writing a follow-up article. He wanted to tell the stories of the other men Thompson had arrested. He wanted their voices to be heard too. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from David Chen, the man who had helped him get the security camera footage. My mother is proud that her camera helped bring justice. She says she wishes she had come forward sooner. Thank you for giving us the courage to speak up. Darius smiled and texted back. Thank your mother for me. She's a hero." That evening, Darius's CNN interview aired on national television. Millions of people watched. The story spread even further. Social media exploded with discussions about police accountability and racism in law enforcement. In cities across the country, similar stories began to emerge. Other journalists started investigating police officers in their own communities. Other victims of police misconduct found the courage to come forward. James Morrison's case had opened a door that had been closed for too long. At the Riverside Police Department, Officer Bradley Thompson sat in an empty office, waiting. He knew what was coming. He knew his career was over. He knew he would probably face criminal charges. For years, he had gotten away with targeting black men because the system protected him, but now the system had turned against him. He thought about all the men he had arrested. He told himself they probably deserved it anyway. He told himself he was just doing his job. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had abused his power. He had lied under oath. He had destroyed lives, and now, finally, he was going to be held accountable. Late that night, Darius Williams sat at his desk and read through hundreds of messages. People thanked him for his reporting. People shared their own stories of police misconduct. People told him he was making a difference. One message stood out. It was from James Morrison. "Darius, I don't know how to thank you. You saved my life. You gave me justice when I thought justice was impossible. You kept your promise. Thank you." Darius felt emotion rising in his chest. This was why he became a journalist. This was why he spent long nights investigating stories that others ignored. This was why the work mattered. He typed a response to James. "You're welcome, but you saved yourself by telling the truth and never giving up. I just helped people hear it. Stay strong. This is just the beginning." Because it was just the beginning. Thompson's arrest was coming. The lawsuits were coming. The reforms were coming. Change was coming. And Darius Williams would be there to document all of it. 3 days after Darius Williams published his investigation, federal agents arrived at Officer Bradley Thompson's house at 6 in the morning. Thompson answered the door in his pajamas, his face pale and tired. He hadn't slept much since the story broke. "Bradley Thompson, you are under arrest for perjury, deprivation of rights under color of law, and conspiracy to violate civil rights," the lead FBI agent said, holding up a badge. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Thompson stood there as they put handcuffs on his wrists. The same handcuffs he had used on so many innocent people. His neighbors watched from their windows as agents led him to a black SUV. News cameras tipped off about the arrest, filmed everything. By 9 a.m., the footage of Thompson being arrested was all over the news. The man who had sent so many people to jail was now going to jail himself. Inside the Riverside Police Department, Chief Palmer called an emergency meeting. Every officer in the department was required to attend. They gathered in the main conference room, over 100 officers standing shoulder to shoulder. "You all know why we're here," Palmer began, his voice heavy with disappointment. "One of our own has betrayed everything this badge stands for." Officer Thompson used his authority to target innocent people. He lied in court. He destroyed lives, and he made all of us look bad. Some officers nodded. Others looked at the floor. A few looked angry that Thompson's actions were now reflecting on all of them. The FBI is now involved. The Department of Justice is launching a full investigation into our department. They will be looking at every arrest, every use of force report, every complaint. They will be interviewing officers and citizens. And they will be determining whether the problems in our department go deeper than just one bad officer. Palmer paused and looked around the room. "I want to be clear about something. If anyone else in this room has done what Thompson did, if anyone else has abused their power or lied about arrests, now is the time to come forward. Because they will find out. And when they do, you will face the same consequences as Thompson." The room was silent. From this day forward, things are going to be different. Body cameras will be mandatory at all times. No exceptions. No malfunctions. We are installing new equipment that cannot be turned off by officers. We are implementing new training on bias and proper procedures. We are creating a civilian oversight board that will review all complaints against officers. And we are rebuilding trust with our community, which will take years of hard work. Palmer dismissed the meeting. As officers filed out, many of them were talking quietly about Thompson. Some expressed shock. Some said they had always thought something was wrong with him. Some worried about their own careers now that the whole department was under investigation. At the district attorney's office, Michael Stevens and his team worked around the clock reviewing Thompson's cases. They had identified 40 convictions that needed to be examined. 3 men were currently in prison, serving sentences based primarily on Thompson's testimony. Stevens called the first one personally. His name was Antoine Davis. He had been in prison for 2 years on drug possession charges. Thompson had testified that he saw Antoine selling drugs on a street corner and arrested him with cocaine in his pocket. Antoine had maintained his innocence, but the jury believed Thompson. "Mr. Davis, this is District Attorney Michael Stevens. I have news about your case. We have evidence that Officer Thompson, who testified at your trial, committed perjury in multiple cases. We are recommending that your conviction be overturned and that you be released from prison immediately." There was silence on the other end of the line, then Antoine's voice shaking with emotion. "Are you serious? I'm getting out?" "Yes, sir. We are processing the paperwork now. You should be released within 48 hours. I want to apologize on behalf of the state. You should never have been convicted. You should never have spent a single day in prison." Antoine started crying. "I told everyone I was innocent. Nobody believed me. Everyone thought I was just another criminal lying to get out of trouble. But I was telling the truth. I was innocent." "I know," Stevens said quietly, "and I'm sorry it took us this long to realize it." Stevens made 2 more similar calls that day. 2 more innocent men would soon be free, but he knew the damage was already done. They had lost years of their lives. They had lost time with their families. They had lost jobs and opportunities. No amount of apologies could give that back to them. The review of cases continued. Of the 40 convictions involving Thompson, prosecutors determined that 12 were likely wrongful convictions where Thompson's testimony was the primary evidence. 8 more cases had questions and would require further investigation. The remaining cases had other evidence beyond Thompson's testimony and appeared to be legitimate arrests. Stevens held a press conference to announce the findings. The district attorney's office has identified 12 individuals who were wrongfully convicted based on false testimony from Officer Thompson. We are moving immediately to overturn these convictions and release these individuals from custody or supervision. We are also conducting further investigation into 8 additional cases. To the people who were wrongfully convicted, I offer my deepest apologies. Our justice system failed you. We will work to make this right. Reporters shouted questions. What about compensation for the people who were wrongly imprisoned? We are working with the state to provide compensation to all individuals who were wrongfully convicted. They will also have the opportunity to file civil lawsuits for damages. How much will this cost the city? I don't know yet, but the cost of justice is something we must pay. The real question is why we allowed this to happen in the first place. While all of this was happening, James Morrison was trying to return to normal life, but normal life seemed impossible now. His story was known across the country. People recognized him on the street. Some wanted to shake his hand and tell him he was brave. Others looked at him with suspicion, as if he must have done something wrong, even if Thompson lied. He had lost his job at the restaurant. His boss said it was because he had missed too much work while in jail. But James suspected the real reason was that the restaurant didn't want the attention and controversy. Sarah had been amazing through everything. She stayed with him every day, supporting him, reminding him that he had done nothing wrong. But James could see the stress in her eyes too. This had been hard on both of them. One afternoon, Rebecca Chen called James with news. 3 civil rights organizations want to represent you in a lawsuit against Officer Thompson and the Riverside Police Department. They believe you have a strong case for damages, false arrest, emotional distress, loss of income, violation of civil rights. You could receive a substantial settlement. How substantial? James asked. It's hard to say, but cases like this often settle for several $million. You deserve compensation for what you went through. James thought about it. Several $1 million would change his life. He could buy a house. He could marry Sarah. He could go back to school and get a better job. The money would solve a lot of problems. But more than money, James wanted Thompson to face real consequences.
Will the lawsuit help make sure Thompson goes to prison?
The civil lawsuit is separate from the criminal case, Rebecca explained. But yes, your testimony in the civil case could strengthen the criminal prosecution. Thompson is facing federal charges that carry serious prison time. If convicted, he could spend 10 to 20 years in prison. Okay, James said. Let's do it. Let's file the lawsuit, not just for the money, but to make sure this never happens to anyone else. I'll set up a meeting with the attorneys, Rebecca said. James, I'm proud of you. You've handled this with incredible dignity. 6 weeks after Thompson's arrest, Darius Williams won the Regional Investigative Journalism Award for his reporting. The ceremony was held in a nice hotel downtown. Darius wore a suit that he had borrowed from a friend because he didn't own one nice enough for the occasion. When they called his name, Darius walked up to the stage. He accepted the award, a heavy glass plaque with his name engraved on it. He stood at the microphone and looked out at the audience of journalists, editors, and media professionals. Thank you for this honor, Darius began, but this award doesn't belong to me alone. It belongs to James Morrison, who had the courage to tell his story even when he thought nobody would believe him. It belongs to the 11 other men who came forward to share their experiences with Officer Thompson. It belongs to David Chen and his mother, who provided the security camera footage that proved the truth. And it belongs to every person who has ever been targeted by someone in power and felt like they had no voice. The audience applauded. I became a journalist because I believe that truth matters. I believe that holding powerful people accountable matters. I believe that giving voice to people who are ignored and dismissed matters. The James Morrison case shows why this work is so important. Without investigation, without documentation, without someone willing to dig deeper and ask questions, Thompson would still be targeting innocent people. James would still be in jail, and the system would have continued protecting a racist cop at the expense of justice. Darius held up the award. So I accept this on behalf of everyone who fights for truth and justice. And I promise to keep doing this work, to keep investigating, to keep holding power accountable for as long as I'm able. The audience gave him a standing ovation. After the ceremony, dozens of people came up to congratulate him. Other journalists asked for advice. Young reporters told him he inspired them to pursue investigative journalism. But the person Darius was most happy to see was James Morrison. James had come to the ceremony with Sarah and his mother. He wore a new suit that Sarah had helped him pick out. He looked proud and hopeful. Congratulations, James said, shaking Darius's hand. You deserve this award. We both did, Darius said. How are you doing? Better, James said. I got a new job. I'm working at a community center teaching cooking classes to kids. It pays less than the restaurant, but I like it better. I like helping people. That's great, Darius said. And the lawsuit? It's moving forward. My attorneys say we should reach a settlement in the next few months. But honestly, the money isn't the most important thing anymore. The most important thing is that Thompson is facing justice. Speaking of which, Darius said, Thompson's trial is scheduled for next month. Federal court. I'm going to cover it for the paper. Will you testify? Yes, James said firmly. I'll tell my story again, as many times as I need to. Because other people need to hear it. Other people need to know that they can fight back against injustice. 2 months later, Officer Bradley Thompson stood trial in federal court. The courtroom was packed with reporters, victims, and concerned citizens. Darius Williams sat in his usual spot in the back taking notes. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. The security camera footage showing Thompson staging the assault. Testimony from 12 men about similar arrests. Expert analysis of body camera malfunction rates. Documentation of Thompson's pattern of targeting black men. Thompson's defense attorney tried to argue that Thompson was just doing his job, that the arrests were legitimate, that the pattern was coincidence, but nobody believed it. The evidence was too clear. James Morrison took the stand and told his story once again. He spoke calmly and clearly, describing every detail of that night. He looked Thompson directly in the eyes as he testified. Thompson sat at the defense table, his face blank. He showed no emotion, no remorse, no shame. After 3 weeks of trial, the jury deliberated for just 4 hours. They found Thompson guilty on all counts: perjury, deprivation of rights under color of law, conspiracy to violate civil rights. When the verdict was read, James felt relief wash over him. Sarah squeezed his hand. His mother cried quietly. Around the courtroom, other victims of Thompson's abuse nodded with satisfaction. At sentencing 2 months later, Judge Robert Martinez gave Thompson the maximum sentence allowed by law. 15 years in federal prison. Mr. Thompson, you were given a badge and a gun and the authority to protect and serve your community, Judge Martinez said. Instead, you used that authority to target innocent people because of the color of their skin. You lied under oath. You sent innocent men to jail. You destroyed lives and families. You betrayed the public trust in the most fundamental way. Your actions have damaged the reputation of every honest police officer in this country. You deserve no leniency. Thompson was led away in handcuffs. He would spend the next 15 years in the same prison system where some of his victims had been sent. After the sentencing, James Morrison stood on the courthouse steps and spoke to a crowd of reporters. Today justice was served, but we cannot forget that this should never have happened in the first place. The system that allowed Officer Thompson to abuse his power for 8 years needs to change. We need better training for police officers. We need civilian oversight. We need accountability. And we need to believe people when they tell us they've been wronged, especially people from marginalized communities who have been ignored for too long. The Riverside Police Department implemented major reforms: body cameras that couldn't be turned off, de-escalation training, a civilian review board with real power to investigate complaints, new hiring practices that emphasized community policing and cultural sensitivity. Chief Palmer retired and was replaced by Lieutenant Rodriguez, who became the first Latina woman to lead the department. She made police reform her top priority. The city settled James Morrison's lawsuit for $4 million. James used some of the money to buy a house and marry Sarah in a small ceremony, surrounded by family and friends. He used the rest to start a nonprofit organization that provided legal support to people who couldn't afford attorneys when facing false charges. Darius Williams continued his investigative journalism. His reporting on the Thompson case led to similar investigations in other cities. Police departments across the country were forced to examine their own patterns of misconduct. Reforms were implemented. Officers were held accountable. Lives were changed. 1 year after Thompson's conviction, Darius received a letter in the mail. It was from Antoine Davis, one of the men who had been released from prison after his wrongful conviction was overturned. "Dear Mr. Williams," the letter began, "I want to thank you for your work. Because of your investigation, I am free. I am home with my family. I have a job. I have my life back. You gave me hope when I thought hope was gone. You proved that justice is possible, even when it seems impossible. You showed that one person with courage and determination can change the world. Thank you for being that person. Thank you for caring when nobody else did." Darius read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and put it in his desk drawer next to his journalism award. On days when the work felt too hard, when the stories were too sad, when the injustice seemed too overwhelming, he would take out that letter and remember why he did this work. Because truth mattered. Because justice mattered. Because every person deserved to be believed, to be heard, to be treated with dignity and respect regardless of the color of their skin. Officer Bradley Thompson had been a racist cop who lied in court and destroyed innocent lives. But he had been exposed by a black journalist who refused to look away, who refused to accept injustice, who refused to let the powerful escape accountability, and that made all the difference. James Morrison stood in his kitchen one evening, teaching a cooking class to a group of teenagers from the community center. He showed them how to properly chop vegetables, how to season food with confidence, how to create something good from simple ingredients. One of the teenagers, a young black boy named Marcus, asked him a question. "Mr. Morrison, is it true you were arrested by that cop who was on the news?" James nodded. "Yes, it's true. Were you scared?" "Very scared," James admitted. "I was terrified. I thought nobody would believe me. I thought I would go to prison for something I didn't do." "But you didn't give up," Marcus said. "No, I didn't give up. I told the truth even when it was hard. And eventually, people listened. Eventually, justice happened. It wasn't easy and it wasn't fast, but it happened." Marcus thought about that. "So even when bad things happen, you just have to keep telling the truth?" "Yes," James said, smiling. "You keep telling the truth. You keep believing that justice is possible, and you never ever give up hope." The class continued. James taught them how to make a simple pasta dish. The kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and olive oil. The teenagers laughed and talked and learned. Outside, the sun was setting over Riverside. The same streets where James had been pulled over and arrested were now just streets again. The same police cars that had once filled him with fear were just cars. The same system that had failed him was slowly, painfully learning to be better. The work was not finished. There were still racist cops out there. There were still wrongful convictions. There was still injustice. But there was also hope. There was also change. There was also proof that one person's courage, combined with another person's determination to uncover the truth, could shake the foundations of an unjust system. Officer Bradley Thompson had been exposed. He had been held accountable. He had been sent to prison, and the people he had hurt were finally free. That was justice. Imperfect, delayed, but real. And it had all started because a young black man refused to be silenced, and a black journalist refused to look away.